God is glorified, and the people of God edified.
The thoughts, views, and comments expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production of Glory 93.9 FM.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street.
Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women.
Wardrobe provided by Bahari Bahamas. Visit shopbahari.com. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate you guys being here with me every day. So today's show is going to be focusing completely and wholly on the nation's second city. And I'm calling the show Visions of Grandeur, from Visions of Grandeur to Depths of Despair. What has gone wrong in Grand Bahama? Now, for those of you old enough to remember, Grand Bahama used to be truly a jewel, not just a jewel of the Bahamas, but a jewel of the entire Caribbean. I mean, this is a place where the economy was strong and vibrant culture and a proud people. Grand Bahama was the envy in many ways of the entire country. And when we look at where Grand Bahama is today, we have to ask the question, what went wrong? How is it that an island that, was truly exemplary in the way that it was laid out and the way that it was run, and everything just seemed to be so wonderful, to where it is today, where the people of Grand Bahama feel forsaken, where the once thriving economy is just hanging on by a thread, where there seems to be confusion as to what needs to be done to fix it. An entire ministry was created to oversee the needs of the island of Grand Bahama. An entire ministry. And yet the island continues to languish. And unfortunately has been hit, not once, but several times, by natural disasters that have plunged it even deeper into despair. So we're going to be talking about Grand Bahama today, and I'm talking to two gentlemen who are from Grand Bahama, residents of Grand Bahama, well, actually residents of Grand Bahama, longtime residents, because Sea Island is actually from New Providence, I believe, but has spent many years living in Grand Bahama. And KCX is also a Grand Bahamian, and they're actually going to help us to understand what has caused us to be where we are as it relates to Grand Bahama and why that once thriving island seems to be on life support right now. And in their view, what needs to be done to resuscitate it. It's a very complex question, it seems. But maybe they will bring us some solutions that aren't so complex to solve the island's challenges. So let's see what they're going to bring for us today. So let's go ahead and add C. Alan Johnson to the stream. C. Alan, you all know him as critical thinker, and that is because he is a critical thinker. He always comes with a wealth of knowledge about what is happening in our country, whether it be politics or technology. You can always turn to C. Alan Johnson for some words of wisdom. C. Alan, welcome back to GPS.
Thank you once again for helping.
I mean, right off the bat, everything is working fine. C. Alan on the ball this morning. Good stuff. And KCX is going to join us on the show as well. Now, KCX is going to be doing something a little different. What he's going to be doing is he's actually going to be going to the locations of which he will speak so that we can actually, for those of us tuning in via Facebook and YouTube, you will actually be able to see what he is going to be describing. So that will give us an even more accurate picture of what is actually happening on the ground in Grand Bahama. But see, Alan, I remember the days when Grand Bahama was carrying on. You know, the Grand Bahamians used to look down on us Nassauvians. You all Nassau people ain't used to nothing. Grand Bahama was, I mean, a jewel of the Caribbean, a jewel of the Bahamas. And if we look at where Grand Bahama is today, and we shudder and wonder what went wrong.
But I'll take away what you say used to be. Okay. Grand Bahama still is. You know, if you take a diamond and you drop it in the mud or bury it somewhere, it doesn't diminish its value. Take a dollar, spit on it, drop it in feces. It doesn't devalue the dollar. The mere fact that we have refused to, and I'm going to use, and I said we have refused to capitalize on what Grand Bahama is. Grand Bahama is a statement coined by Mr. Gregory Moss in a 3-part article that I've adopted as my own, is the Grand Deception. Because Grand Bahama is and will be the key linchpin in the revitalization and for the recovery of the Bahamian economy post-COVID. And I've made the challenges that I would challenge any economist anywhere to bring me a national development plan, to bring me a recovery plan where Grand Bahama doesn't play one of the most singular role in its recovery, only followed by Abaco. So you look at New Providence. If you was to take all of the things that what you would call necessary from New Providence right now and say tourism is restored, and with Grand Bahama in its current condition and Abaco in its current condition, you'll be missing literally 1/3 of the Bahamian economy. You would have a BPL still dysfunctional in the proper aspect of energy generation. You will have probably 50 to 75% of the jobs on New Providence totally devastated. That's going to be looked for an economic punch. Remember, the buildings are still there, the infrastructure is still there, but the necessary resources for the revitalization of those businesses will not be there. So literally speaking, if tourism was to return tomorrow, you would literally still only have 25 to 35% of the Bahamian economy that could return on the instant. Let's pretend everybody in the world got vaccine, as they call it. I still don't believe it's a vaccine. It's a treatment. But let's pretend since we're into pretending that we have vaccines, let's pretend that the world has it. What then happens is, how do you still run an economy? But let's even be generous with 40% of where you were. Because remember, they call them MSMEs, micro, medium, micro, small, and medium businesses or enterprises will not be returning. That's a fact. They're gone. They're not coming back on the instant. So then comes the question. So what can we turn to? the rebuilding of Grand Bahama is an essential, and Abaco is very an essential part. And I've heard the proclamations that, $2 billion, $3 billion worth of damages on Abaco in the Bahamas. And this is why it's almost insulting when we hear the current prime minister say that he has given $200 million towards a pandemic, when $200 million could barely rebuild the homes back on Grand Bahama and the whole aspect of things. So this is why we always have to kind of take contextually what the message is, and we have to begin to do so going forward. Now, let's use an example that we accept the $3 billion or whatever figure they want to use for the damage of the economy. But let's begin to look at what a GDP is. Because we often just take this GDP in context, so that's want people to understand why it's important for us to focus on Grand Bahama and the Abacos. The GDP of the country is the salaries paid and the profits made by businesses. Now, I want you to imagine that I have a multi-million American franchise serving burgers or whatever you want, chicken, whatever you want. And so the GDP of that business, pretend that business is the Bahamas. The GDP is all the salaries and the profit I make. A fire comes, a storm comes, and wipes out the billing. The billing is no longer there. Do I now pronounce that I lost the GDP while ignoring the infrastructure that produces the GDP? And so when they say 25% of the GDP is disappeared, or 30% of the GDP of the Bahamas economy, the $12 billion economy, they're saying $3 billion of the GDP has disappeared. But they have missed the fact of the infrastructure that generated that GDP. We saw the damage on Abaco and on Grand Bahama. And so we become disingenuous on what we need to rebuild to revitalize that GDP. That GDP doesn't just come out of the air. So my billing is gone. How do I now begin to generate the GDP, which is the salaries and the profits I make? You can't. And so when you begin to look at what is necessary for Grand Bahama and Abaco, you could put, without looking for any major improvement, from $5 to $7 billion to rebuild the homes and the businesses and whatever else that has been wiped out on Abaco and time. And so now we're talking about a new economy. And so we, on Grand Bahama, we need about 20,000 rooms. An actual competence survey was conducted about 6-7 years ago and some more, said that for the Bahamas, for Grand Bahama, to be in the hospitality industry, we need between 7,000 and 10,000 rooms to become net zero. And that's the hospitality industry. Remember now, COVID has shut down businesses, and the hurricane has damaged a lot of those since this COVID. But the hurricane damaged a lot. So we're talking about a pre-Dorian survey that said we need 10,000 rooms. So what is net zero? Net zero means there's sufficient rooms on the island that the infrastructure to support it, taxis and tours and food stores and all these other different things can support it. So we've been about 8,000 plus rooms short for a long period of time. So now that we're talking about a post-COVID and a new dimension in how tourism or hospitality will be conducted, I'm just talking about the housing aspect of it, because we're still in the word hospitality as opposed to tourism. We have sports, we have hospitality, we have sports, we have medical, we have education, we have a whole different definitions under that subcategory. But if you look at the fact that we need about 20,000 rooms to become really viable, none of those rooms exist today. There's insufficient homes and a country in crisis. So a strategic economic plan would become, forget the hotel of opening about 800 or 900 rooms that is totally dysfunctional and is ill-prepared to accept guests. If we was to begin to come up with the master plan of the designing this new hospitality destination of Abacos and the Bahamas, the Grabaco, the Grand Bahama and Abacos, you could very easily look at about 30,000 rooms. What is required? That's not counting the homes. It requires a build-out of these aspects. And so we're talking about years of construction. At the same time, what you have is a viable tourism product that takes into into an aspect of protocol of our COVID protocol, at the same time developing restaurants and tours and the likes. And so you can't do this on New Providence, and you cannot do this on any other island. I hear people talk about Andros and all these other islands. It will take 5 years or longer, maybe 10 years, to build a infrastructure equal to what Grand Bahama has today and has had for 60 years. And so we don't need to go build roads and power plants and all these other things. It's here. So all we have to do is build homes. So just consider the volumes of people that is needed to build this new concept of tourism that we have pre-planned and pre-market. And you said, build it, they will come. And so we just have to think about it. And so, believe it or not, which will be for another show, we can provide 100% financing to build those 20,000 to 30,000 rooms right now. Forget the SBDC, forget the Bank of the Bahamas, and forget the what do you call those entrepreneurial fund and everything. They'll serve a purpose, but clearly combined, they don't even have $1 billion. And we're talking about needing to build a multi-billion-dollar structure. And we can do this. The workforce is necessary. Here in Grand Bahama, you still can find properties running from $5,000 for quarter acre to $50,000 on the waterfront. And so just for the price of what the Prime Minister say, price of property in New Providence is $150,000, you could get a quarter acre, not a piece of a property that they have in New Providence. So for the price of what you would pay for $150,000 for land in Grand Bahama, you could practically build a home. Okay. And so when you transition in, it becomes a wonderful opportunity. We just got to think big, bold, and reimagine the Bahamas.
So what is stopping that from happening? What historically has gotten Grand Bahama to the place where it is now, and what is stopping that from happening?
Two things. Go back to what I said, the grand deception. The problem with meeting the commitment, something governs Grand Bahama. I know people like to use the word Freeport, but this has been extended to Grand Bahama, the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. The Hawksbill Creek Agreement is a poison pill, not only for the current Grand Bahama Port Authority, but for leadership in the Bahamas. Now, here's why. The Hawksbill Creek Agreement called for August of 1990 for a form of municipal government to happen. This is when they came and gave us the fake local government, so they could supposedly prohibit the taxation that's supposed to occur within Grand Bahama. So this municipal government would require that 50% of the revenue generated on Grand Bahama, since we're talking about the whole island, remain on Grand Bahama in a local governance. Now, let's use Freeport alone. If Freeport alone gets away with not paying $300 million a year, when you look at property tax and business taxes and all those different things, then you would have to naturally assume that easily from $100 million to $150 million would remain in Freeport in the hands of a local government entity. Second thing about municipal government, it allows for what is called self-taxation, meaning if Freeport decides it wants to build a new school and it costs $15 million for the state-of-the-art school, it would look at the 30,000 homes on Freeport, divide that into 15 million, and says, okay, everybody, you now pay, what is that, $500, or $30,000, $500 one-time fee spread over 10 years. You pay $50 a year for the next 10 years so we can build this school. $50 a year for the next 10 years, or $25 a month for the next year. You know, or whatever you want, $15, and we could build a new school without interference, because we could self-tax ourselves to build the schools, to build whatever we want. That is part of municipal government. Forget this local government garbage we talk about. Now, here's another point. The Hawksbill Creek Agreement for taxation to occur called upon the creation. I want you to remember I just talked to you about local government, the municipal government. The Hawksbill Creek Agreement also called for a land registry. And there is no land registry except kept by the Grand Bahama Port Authority. In fact, you don't have to even register your land in Freeport with the land people in New Providence. Here's what happens though. There's a caveat when you begin to look at local government and all these things that the Hawksbill Creek Agreement called for. There's a caveat in the agreement. It says no laws in Freeport, and by extension Grand Bahama, should apply to Bahamians in Freeport unless it applies to Bahamians everywhere in the Bahamas. Whoa, 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 whoa. What is it say? No laws should apply to Bahamians on Grand Bahama unless it applies to Bahamian everywhere. Why? So then what happens? That means if you have a land registry in Grand Bahama, you must have a land registry everywhere. That means you will have everybody knowing those millions of acres of crown land, who has them. We would all know who has them. All the land that is around the Bahamas, we would know. So rather than invoking the benefits that the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement called for, such as local government, meaning that you'll have municipal government, because you think Abaco would sit around and let Grand Bahama have municipal government and say we don't want that too? You think Lucha would say, we don't want that. We want to be governed from New Providence. So what happens is giving Freeport and by extension Grand Bahama, what the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement called for, become an albatross that around this so-called monopolistic governance where you have a dictatorship from New Providence that actually control us. And so they did. And let me tell people who always on the radio, these so-called experts, who keep saying the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement was extended. The Hawkesbury Creek Agreement was a 99-year agreement from 1955 to 2054. The Hawkesbury Creek Agreement has not been extended. In fact, the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement is a law. You cannot extend or shorten the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement without striking down the law, making it cease to exist. However, on 2 occasions so far, maybe 2.5 times, because I don't know the obligation of the second. Here's what happens. The law calls for this taxation and self-governance. So what we did is we passed a law to delay the implementation of the tenets of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, and then we called it an extension. It wasn't an extension. It was actually a law to delay what the law calls for. Then we came back subsequently and had another delay. So there's never been no extension. Don't mind what they say in Parliament. There is no extension of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement because it will still remain for 99 years. So there's some tenets that call for taxation. There's some tenets that call for self-governing. Some tenets that simply say that, remember, it also says that we must build our own school, our own hospitals, our own court buildings, our own everything, which is self-taxation. This is why we give the Grand Bahama Port Authority in Hutchinson $100 million a year or more to build schools, to build hospitals. We don't have a hospital yet. We don't have the proper schools based on giving $100 million a year to this entity that sits in this pink building. We don't, the court system is dilapidated. So what happens is, this is why we call it the grand deception. This is why you see a marketed effort in New Providence to continuously keep this quiet. You hear people, remember with Dr. Minutes before the last election, I'm going to repeal what the PLP put in place. And we're going to have Grand Bahama what it is, and we can do all these things. And as soon as he get in, he extended the delayed implementation of what he called for. What happened? Because then he began to see doing what he promised threaten the dynasty, the kingship that he has, because it would surrender power to Grand Bahamians and Bahamians everywhere who will demand what the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement called for, the right for it to apply to them also. So this is why we have this whole craziness, because they don't want you to know who they give the crown land to. Don't mind Prime Minister Minnis talking about he's going to have a land registry. A study was done and completed at the tune of millions of dollars by Hubert Alexander Ingram, I think in 2009. It was done again, GIS study with Text Tanquest. Another one was done again under the PLP, and we could do it again and again. How many times are you going to pay millions of dollars to do the exact same study and you know where everything is? Well, if you didn't know where it was, how are you taxing people now for property tax? So they know where it is. The problem is they don't want a land registry, because you will also find out the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres that is actually quiet claim by people, generation properties and other crown land and whatever, that has been quiet claim by these people and having their names. And so this is a grand deception. This is not the truth about what is happening. If Grand Bahama was to be developed at its full potential, which can happen right now today, you would have Nassau empty, because you will have people in New Providence who can't afford homes. who can't afford whatever will come to Grand Bahama for this new economy, for high-paying jobs in the tech sector and everything else that could be put here. They would leave Providence, actually come to Grand Bahama.
Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yes. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning. Good morning, Bahamas. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. I take exception with one interpretation of the law that Mr. Johnson has put forth in terms of the application of the clause of the Hawks Creek Agreement with respect to the general population of the Bahamas. I think he has interpreted that quite literally, and beyond the scope of what that's one where you said that as a consequence there should have been a registry in Grand Bahama.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. How else would you apply the tax to the 70,000 acres? No, the 70,000 acres that's in Freeport.
I'm not saying that what you're projecting is right or wrong. I'm saying when you use that clause in the agreement, that is over amplifying it for what it means.
But hold on a second. Let me say something to you. Hold on a second.
I'm speaking to you from a lawyer perspective.
Let him finish that.
No, I know who you are. I just want you to pause. Hold on a second.
Allen, let him make his point.
Which is going to bring me into my second comment. I have three to make in total. This is the same clause, Michelle and Bahamas, that is found in every conveyance of real estate. All right? That clause is put there so that if I am doing a development and if I sell a client a piece of property and if I make what we call stipulation clause or covenant that runs with the land, I cannot sell buyer one a piece of land, make a stipulation on his property, and sell a subsequent buyer a piece of land within that's neighboring that same property and give them a different stipulation. Then what that means is I make buyers of land in that one development of unequal, make them unequal in terms of covenants and rules that governs the land. So that clause is simply saying if a person commits a crime in Nassau, the same application of the law will apply to a person who commits a similar act in Grand Bahama. Okay?
No, pause. See, Mr. Johnson, pause.
I'm not saying that you necessarily agree with me.
No, because you're convoluting. Hold on a second, sir. Let's have a conversation.
And I'm gonna call in, and I ought to be able to express myself. Which brings me to my second point, which is probably not gonna rub well with you. Not that I'm trying to be of acrimonious or contentious with you, Mr. Johnson. When you're on the show and you're laying out all of these things, these principles, and they may well be good, they may well be substantive. But what you're putting forth, Michelle, what he's putting forth, what any of your guests is putting forth, ought to be capable of being responded to.
But Mr. Johnson, you say you want to have a conversation. You're trying to make a statement. I'm saying to you, I don't want to go through the whole 15 minutes, whatever. I'm saying to you, each time you make a statement,
you're gonna have the rest of the show to be able to respond. Okay.
No, I don't want to spend the rest of the show responding to you. I want to ask you a simple question. Have you read the Royal Commission report by the Lords, by which you subject yourself to as a lawyer?
Again, I came on with 3 points. I don't want to diverge.
What you're saying is wrong. The Lords, the warlords that we call the Privy Council type environment, is the one who's stating what I'm stating. This is not my opinion. This is a legal opinion.
Fine.
Go ahead,
Michelle. I'm trying to agree to agree. Okay. What I'm saying that let's take it at what you're saying. Lillian, come on to this. Let's take it at what you say is correct. Okay? We leave it to the listening public to round it off for themselves. But let me just make my third point so I don't deleg the show in the time. The third point is this, which has nothing to do. Michelle, are you there?
Listening.
Okay. Michelle, Mr. Johnson is putting forth some good points with respect to infrastructure and facilities. Okay? I agree with that. Here is where I move my outlook as to why Grand Bahama is not getting the stimulus, why it is not happening for Grand Bahama, or for any number of places in the Bahamas.
Okay, let's
Here is where I see the fault. Okay? People are important. People are the resources, are the number one resources in the country. And you can build what you want. You can spend, and Mr. Johnson has some bright ideas. And he can bring all those ideas. And we can give him the finances to carry out those ideas and pass legislation with policies and make laws and acts. But if you do not get the minds of the people to evolve into a higher state of thinking, it makes no sense. Michelle, the three of us, your host, your guests, or three of us go up on one corner. We have ideals that when we left Fountain Road, we aspire to. But if your people don't aspire to nothing, you could give them the best car, they run it in the ground. You could put them in the best house, they wouldn't rake the yard. Okay? You can do anything. You've got to get into the minds and hearts of the people.
So let's bring home to Grand Bahama. How do you bring that home to Grand Bahama? What are you saying about
how I can bring that home?
Yes.
Michelle. We need leaders. We need leaders who are who epitomizes the message of what they say they come to bring. We need people who act and live the very message that they speak in the House of Assembly. We don't have those type of leaders. And you know what, Michelle? And we have to blame ourselves. You know why? A deceiver does just that. He sells fairy tales. And fairy tales, like Cinderella, like Goldilocks, they are more apt to be believed than reality. A politician, as it is now, tells the voters what they want to hear. I can put you on streets of gold. I can take you to a land of milk and honey. When the reality, Michelle, is streets of gold has to be tarred, has to be graded, has to be kept, has to be manicured week to week, year to year. Okay? We are not showing, we are telling our people where we want them to go, but we are not demonstrating in our very own life how it is that they can get there. Let me just say this last piece, Michelle. Historically, China, the Great Wall of China that runs along the Mongolian border, okay? The Mongolians used to go over that wall and invade the Chinese territory. Did you think the Chinese minded? The Chinese was glad. That was the idea, to get the Mongolians to invade that part of China, to take over those nice suburbs and those nice towns. But you know, the Mongolians soon realized after they began to invade those towns and cities, we got it. And after a few months, guess what? They woke up. We got to maintain it. So only the Mongolians that were willing to upkeep that standard of life stayed on that side of the wall of China. The rest, who were lazy, weightless, and good for nothing, went back to Mongolia. I'm saying there is something innate that needs to be triggered off in the beginning. Okay? A standard of existence. No one is stopping that. And the last leader we had, Michelle, the last leader we had that tapped into us as the humans was Sir Lyndon Tillman. He epitomized a standard of living. He was a man. He was a man, an example of not policies, of life living. How to handle your wife, how to handle your children, how to handle your neighbors, how to handle your subordinates, how to be an employer. That was Linden. Living it every day. How to accept defeat. The voices of the people is the voice of God. We have people who will come into a circumstance of defeat and don't even know how to accept it.
Okay. I don't want us to lose focus. Okay. So, see, Alan, how do you respond? Because I hear what you're saying, caller, about the mindset of the people, but we cannot ignore the fact that there have been successive governments that have ignored the people to the degree where no matter what their mindset is or was, it still led to the devastation that we see happening in Grand Bahama. We can't put this all on the mindset of the people. There are some policies that were allowed to exist in Grand Bahama that are leading to the destruction of that island. See, Alan, let's get you in on this. How do you respond?
What do you mean with respect to the hospital agreement?
Yes, you can hold a second for this. Let me say that in 1971, a report called I was trying to find the exact page to read it for you. I couldn't find it in there before. It's called a report of the Royal Commission. I'm going to make sure I send it to you when we finish. A report of the Royal Commission appointed on the recommendation of Bahamas government to review the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. It's 2 parts, volume 1 and 2. The things I'm expressing has been expressed by them concerning the municipal government, concerning a land registry. That's the only, you can't just, you have to know who owns the land to be able to build them and tax them. This is what is called for in Freeport. We extended the control of the Hawksbill Creek Agreement since then to all of Grand Bahama, influence of veto power and etc. And so in essence, I want to talk to it in the context of Grand Bahama. And so the Royal Commission report laid out the intent and the failures and possibilities of what the report is. The land registry is not my idea. It was written into it. The actual the municipal government, that's not my idea. The Creek Agreement called for it.
Michelle, I entirely agree with your guess. A land registry is overdue. We will not debate that. A record of all these ownership of land, be it Grand Bahama or anywhere, is overdue. In fact, I live in Long Island. The conundrum in Long Island is the same thing. This generation problem, it causes more problem than harmony. Yes, a land registry is overdue. But what? Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
What I'm inviting you and everyone else to understand. The end game of us as a society should not be the accumulation or the accumulation or compensation of money. The end game of our social construct should be a well-managed way of living. Okay?
Well, that's what the Hawksbill Creek Agreement called for.
Okay? A coordinated way of living. Do you know, Michelle, I heard everybody talking about poverty line in the Bahamas and poverty line here and poverty line here. Do you know the poverty line could exist, but people can be getting along with their life within the poverty line? But when the poverty line becomes, when the poverty line becomes a suffering, when living within the poverty line becomes a chaos, where criminality runs rampant, and when nobody has a respect for law and order, that's when the poverty line becomes unbearable. In fact, people become suicidal.
But Mr. Johnson, you're now having a conversation on the social construct, a new social contract that we need. But I was speaking in the context of why Grand Bahama has not been developed. Nothing you have said has disproved anything.
Grand Bahama was there. Now, Grand Bahama was there. All of us would agree. Grand Bahama was there. It was an infiltration from the outside of migrants from the other island, including Nassau, that became so relaxed. Let me tell you something. I lived in Grand Bahama.
So hold on. You trying to say migrants from other islands went to Grand Bahama, helped to destroy Grand Bahama? That's what you're trying to say?
Yes, I will say it.
Wow.
Yes, I will say it. And you know why? You know why I will say it? Not only did that happen, because it came down. Nobody held a position. The administrators of Grand Bahama should stand their ground. The government compromised. And let me tell you something else. Those men and women who were looked up to carry on the good administration of Grand Bahama, they were relaxed. They became lazy. Don't let me name some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I won't do that. They became lazy. Grand Bahama was well planned. I'm talking about Freeport, that is. Michelle, you experienced the Freeport in its heyday. Okay, I experienced Freeport in its heyday.
I just don't see, caller, though, and I have to take a break, but I really don't see how you can lay the feet of what has happened in Grand Bahama to the feet of Bahamians going into Grand Bahama from other islands.
Okay.
Before you make that kind of statement, ignore the policies that have led to where Grand Bahama is today is disingenuous. I'm sorry.
Michelle, before you go your break, let me Mr. Johnson. Let me just say,
gentlemen, Georgia and the waivers are responsible for it. It is also let them in.
Gentlemen, we have to take a break. It's
11. Also let them get away. They got away with.
Caller, thank you so much for calling in, and I appreciate your contribution. But we have to take a break. I'm sorry, but no, we have to take a break. It's 11:48. We're well past our time for our first.
Well, answer that when we get back.
Yeah, when we come back, we can let you talk about your response to that. But we have to take a break, y'all. Stay with us. This is GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM.
Located on Carmichael Road, Divine Designs Hair Boutique is a haven for women and men looking for professional beauty services. Our state-of-the-art and contemporary equipment creates a relaxing ambiance for you to enjoy while we cater to you. Need a hairstylist? We cater to all types and textures of hair for care and styling. We even have a barber on duty. Need a nail tech? Our technicians provide a range of nail services, including the latest trends. Unwind in one of our massage chairs while you get your pedicure. With our reasonable rates, friendly staff, and over 20 years of experience, you will be in great hands. Call us at 823-1669 or 698-1025 to schedule your appointment. Want to be pampered? Want to be slayed? Let Divine Designs make your day.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all. Schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466. At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients. Plus, prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. The show today is The Great Deception, from visions of grandeur to the depths of despair. What has gone wrong in Grand Bahama? We are joined today by C. Alan Johnson, who got into a heated discussion just now with that caller. And also joining us now, finally, he's made it to the call, is C. Alan. It's KCX, who's actually on location from the various sites in Grand Bahama that we're going to be discussing today. But C. Alan, you wanted to go ahead and respond to something.
I understand the position that Mr. Johnson took. What he did was he overlapped a social disorder that's happening within our country. And then he applied the problem of the Bahamas to Grand Bahama, whereas Grand Bahama is the medicine to solve the social problem that we have. First of all, I disagree with from a psychological standpoint or psychiatry standpoint, with a psychological standpoint, that education makes people want more. I am of the school that believe an empowered person demands better education. An empowered person demands a better environment. An empowered person would demand a better home. So I believe that empowering Bahamians to make their own choices will cause them to correct the defects, to experience it. We go to the allegory of the cave. How do you expect a person to adopt a concept of empowerment when they have never experienced it? These are things empowered people do. And so I'm simply saying Grand Bahama can become that empowerment tool. I also understand, Michelle, I know where you got kind of confused, where he said the foreigners coming in. He's correct, but he wasn't talking with the people. He mentioned to the people, the Hayward family, Sir Jack family, the Hayward family and Sir George's family. He's talking about the foreigners that actually influenced the creation. First of this agreement was influenced by gangsters. Okay. We see we don't know the history. This was the gangsters that was chased out of Cuba that came to Grand Bahama. This was the corruption in governance that sat in our House of Assembly. What happens though, the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, when we have the true concept, was hijacked and stolen from the family called the Haywards, the Wallace Groves. And so this is where the revisionist historian comes into place, where we begin to market the story. And that's what I'm saying to you. Grand Bahama, the truth about Grand Bahama that will empower the Bahamas require us to tell the truth from our origin to when it simply says that after 60 years you will have full autonomy, that we have ignored. And so when Wallace Groves then was forced out, he was not taken out. Okay, let's not forget that Wallace Groves had an attorney by the last name of Hayward, who happens to be Sir Jack's father, who ends up owning this. We have to look at the shares of the 7.5% of the. Do you know a lot of people don't know that the Bahamas government, by the virtue of the Bahamas government, owns 7.5% of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement. We have never gotten a report, not on day one. In fact, here's what the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement says. It says that every 2 years, biannually, an audited financial report of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement is to be tabled in the House of Assembly by the Prime Minister, who is the minister for the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement. Don't mind, I'm giving you the minister of Grand Bahama. Have you ever seen an audited table report on the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement ever tabled in the House of Assembly since 1955?
Not that I can recall.
So we own these things. So what I'm simply saying is, when we see the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, what it's called for, that the this warrant of commission was issued on September 9, 1970, by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, where it appointed, through virtue of Francis Cumming Bryce, the governor, the Right Honorable Sir Hugh Wooding, PCCBE, Sir Fred Phillips, CVO, R. Manchester Lloyd, Esquire, Malcolm Francis Lindsay, to serve on this commission to give us an analysis of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement. The fact that we have chosen to ignore this subsequent study, which shows the Grand Bahama Port Authority is nothing more than a bankrupt organization that the Dorian and COVID further exasperated, because their only income, based on a report that has been hidden called the McKinsey report, that shows their only income was from the water company and from licenses. And if 80 to 90% of the licenses is gone, and we have yet to get fresh water, so that means they can't be billing us. They have had no income since Dorian. These is a bankrupt organization. So when we put the full context, we must look at how Grand Bahama is meant to influence. Remember now, Grand Bahama was designed to hold 250,000 to 300,000 people when we only had we didn't have vertical building where you go up. Technology exists now that if you just multiply the infrastructure that we have, we can hold 500,000 to 1 million people in Freeport alone.
Let's get KCX in on this conversation. KCX,
to the grand deception.
Yeah. What I know you've been listening in, and now we finally got you in on the stream and you're on location. What are your thoughts, and where are you, and what does where you are have to do with this conversation we're having right now? KCX, can you hear me?
Yes, Michelle, how you doing? Thank you for having me. Very interesting show. See, Alan, how you doing? Great one.
I'm all right, sir. How you doing?
Let me say publicly, man. Let me say publicly, man, thank you so much for your longevity, man, and the love for your country. I'm at the shipyard, Michelle, and why I'm here is because, we normally say to investors when they come in, well, it's going to produce so many jobs. And right here at the shipyard, they have thousands of expat workers. We've prepared our young men and women for these jobs. And all of them, if not all, most of them have been fired. And I normally do a morning session out here when they're coming to work and when they're leaving. I mean, it's like clockwork. They work around the clock out here. And while we have our young people at home with nothing to do, while the unemployment is so high, this is what the real issue is. It's employment. We're now having companies able to come to Grand Bahama and because now they have something called the commercial enterprise. They can now bring their employees along with them. They don't need to hire Bahamians. And so when we talk about policies, it's the policies that has destroyed Grand Bahama. How do we even entertain something called a casual worker with no insurance and no benefits? How do we entertain that? That's what's destroying Grand Bahama. We've allowed hotel workers to now have our maids work for $2 a room. $2 without any gratuity, without any insurance. So the real issue is employment in Grand Bahama. We have activity here in Grand Bahama like it's the 1980s again. But right across the street, right here's Bahama Rock, where they're doing all the mining. And when we pulled up, they were coming out from in the back here. Every 10 minutes, you have a truckload of aggregate coming from in the back here. But they understand that I was here, so they ceased their operation until this is over, I guess. These people here, they do not care about us. We don't care about each other. And these things will continue to happen until we understand that we are the victims. No one cares about us. Until we understand that, we will continue to be victims. And we have the victim mentality now that it can't get any better. We got to remember that the people who are allowing these things to happen, we employ them. The reason why my government is afraid of me is simply because they know I know my rights. And I know that they work for me. And they should fear me rather than me fearing them. And that's the mindset of every Bahamian. Your government works for you. If they're not working for you, these kind of things will continue to happen. Policies will be put in place to force you out of business. See, all of these things that you see right now, they're happening down here. This is something that, see, Alan can tell you, we've been fighting against the WTO since 2001. And we've been doing a hell of a job, because every administration, when they come in, they find that they got to meet up against a force of the WTO assassins. And this is the only country where it's now taken 20 years to become fully WTO compliant. So we are protecting every business in the Bahamas by not allowing the WTO to set in here. Because things like this, and you see all these cars pulling out here, these are not Bahamians in these cars, these are foreigners. They came here riding a bus, now they're able to get up their vehicles, and remittances are now going out of this country. They said the Bahamas is one of the leaders in remittance. Monies are going out of this country like never before. But listen, man, the issue that we have is the policies that allow things like this to keep happening. And the Hawksbill Creek Agreement is a failed experiment. It's a total failed experiment to us.
I want to read a comment from one of our Facebook viewers in response to what that last caller said. Cordero says, he is saying leave things the way it is because some people's mindset won't change. What about the majority of us who already have the mindset? That's my team. Gentlemen, you know, we all know, the three of us at least, and I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners on radio, we know that Grand Bahama has the potential to be far better than it is because it was there. This is not some pipe dream, some, you know, fish upon a star. Grand Bahama was there, where the island enjoyed immense prosperity and was being run very, very well. And you cannot tell me that it is, as the caller tried to insinuate, all about mindset, because much of this has to do with failed policy. Now, the question is, what has to happen now to turn this around? What agency has to be dealt with? What policy has to be revisited? What do we need to require of our parliamentary representatives? You know, Grand Bahama has what, 5 representatives, and yet the island continues to languish. So what needs to happen to turn this around, and why are we not seeing it happen?
What we have to do, Michelle, is we have to have an honest conversation in context of what Grand Bahama was or still is and intended to be.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is doing so will require exposure. In fact, I would put to you that we may have some previous members of parliaments and prime ministers that if they was to die today, we would bury them in Fox Hill just for them to do time.
My God.
You know, I'm saying that's the atrocity, because it wasn't just Grand Bahama they hurt all of us. In fact, what KCX is speaking about, the industry and Bahama Rock that you hear that is extracting the wealth of the country every 10 minutes by the hundreds of tons in those trucks that goes every 10 minutes, 24 hours a day of mining.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens though is that you have individuals who come in who knows the troubles just like I'm speaking of, but as soon as they reach there, they forget. And in fact, after they get out, they begin to argue. I can tell you one time when KCX and I went to a town meeting for the hearing on what to do with Grand Bahama, the individual, Senator Bethel, told me, and this is live on TV, and we have the tape, he said to me, do not listen to what the document says. Listen to what I tell you. We get to discuss what I tell you, not what the document says. That's what he told the room. Let's listen to me. Don't believe what you're reading in your hand. Listen to me. And this is the mindset of those that seek to hide the grand deception. And so the way the previous Mr. Johnson caller spoke about, he is talking about those foreigners that came in and became lords over us instead of having the agreement carry on as it's supposed to do. So they became parasites who slowly sucked life. This is why you didn't see it. They slowly sucked the life of the Grand Bahama and extricated the wealth. So when those major storms like in 2004 came, there was nothing. We was already hanging on, and they had nothing left. They went and spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to raise a ship. They went and bought teams, soft football teams in England and everything else. So what you have is two families that just continuously extricated the wealth out of this country. And even now, they sit to the benefit of the gist of the industrial sector that is literally killing Grand Bahamians. Let me tell you what I've told people before. They determined they couldn't buy us out. And what they couldn't steal, they had decided to starve us off out of this island. This is what, when you go back to the Oban report, and I brought this up too, the Oban report was about strengthening our local oligarch's position to take away this Hawkesbury Creek Agreement when it expires and have full control of Grand Bahama as opposed to developing for Grand Bahamians. And so everything they've done has been an anti-Bahamian, because the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement is a tripart agreement. It is between the licensees of Freeport, the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and the people of the Bahamas. That's us. We have yet to see the benefits of this. And I'm simply saying, as we go back to taking our ownership in this, going back to the 7.5% and the dividends and whatever extricated wealth that we have not gotten our fair share of, and to begin the taxation as called for under the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, we can own Grand Bahama in 5 years. Because those individuals today, they don't have the $1 million to fix the water supply for which they was making multi-millions of dollars on. They can't fix the airport. This is why the airport is in the state it is. This is a bankrupt organization that only exists in name to continue the charade that we have this agreement in its intact as its purpose called for. So what we have to do is, let's revisit this agreement. Let's take ownership of what's expected. Let's give what is called for municipal government. Let's give what is called for taxation of businesses to billions of dollars. Do you know the GDP of Grand Bahama that we do not tax is greater than the GDP of the entire Bahamas that we do tax the poor people in? And they don't pay VAT on the billions of dollars a year. They don't pay money on the profits. They don't pay anything. They live here, give these contracts that KCX spoke about, these temporary contracts, poison the people. Nobody in this industrial sector in Grand Bahama could tell you what happens to the millions of tons of poison they have imported into this country. They pump it into the ground in the well water, killing the people with cancer, where you cannot drink your well water anymore, destroying the water tables, the oil spill in East Grand Bahama, doing multi-billions of dollars worth of damages. And you see in subsequent news that they seen the oil is still there, but they said it was cleaned up. And it's amazing. They clean up the world's largest oil spill in the shortest period of time. Mind you, you have other countries like the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. A decade later, the oil spill in Alaska, 2 decades later, they still clean it up. We clean ours up in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Meanwhile,
you can go and see the oil still there, but
yes,
it just, to me, goes back to they just insult your intelligence. There is a day-to-day all-out assault on our intelligence. These people think we stupid.
Yeah, and because they know we won't reunite. See, the most powerful fear they have is you uniting. I've seen, you'll always have people come and talk with the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement and whatever it says. I always tell them, they come with their sound bites and other people. They'll never come and have a cognizant conversation live and broadcast and bring the documents. And let's go visit these places. Even for what KCX spoke about, they have reports right now for Central Grand Bahama that Aaron Lewis and the former ambassador, Big Mo, said on live broadcast, C. Allen Johnson, and KCX captured this, C. Allen Johnson, we have all the reports you've been asking for 2 decades. We have them hidden and you will never find them. He said that on live television, the ambassador, Maurice Moore.
You're breaking up. I think something's going on with your internet connection. So I don't know if you heard KCX, but I didn't hear anything of what you just said, what he said. So repeat that for me, please.
everything he said.
Seattle? You heard what he said, KCX?
Yes, I heard everything he said. We were at a town hall meeting. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's kind of breezy out here, but we were at a town hall meeting and concerning the cancer in Grand Bahama. Michelle and Mr. Maurice Moore, and we have the video, and I can share it with you after the show, where he said the government is intentionally hiding these findings that we paid for. I mean, it's atrocious. Right now, there's a company by the name of Polymers, who makes the styrofoam beads and the AIDS drugs, and they take their waste. I can show you the tanks where they dump the waste directly into the ground. Now, here's what's so crazy about it. They also give the community free water. Now, the free water, it comes through a reverse osmosis plant, and they're claiming that they get this water out of the Hawksbill Creek, where they've been dumping carcinogens since 1969. Okay, now they're saying they ran it through the reverse osmosis, and they are giving out the letters now saying this water has not been tested for drinking. And no one is even wonder, should this water need to be tested before we allow the public to take this water? And we counted right through the corner that I grew up in, and Michael Pine, we grew up through the same corner. We counted 30 people that were diagnosed and died from cancer. 30 people through one corner. 30. My sister was the last person to die from cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, I was able to beat it. But there's a lot of conversation that are taking place in the House of Assembly, but it doesn't concern Grand Bahama. You hear nothing about these things. And so this is one of the reasons, after all of my activism, I've decided to now apply to the people of the East Grand Bahama to be their representative in the next upcoming election, to carry our message to Parliament. You've never heard about the power company and how they're ripping the Bahamian people off. You remember C. Allen talk about these companies pay no taxes? Well, it's the power company also. They pay no taxes, but yet they tell you you have a fuel surcharge. How do you have a fuel surcharge if you don't pay taxes on the fuel coming in to run your generators? And nobody has these kind of conversation. So these are the conversations I wanna bring to Parliament. Can you imagine? C. Allen also spoke about the oil spill. Imagine an oil spill they deem, the expert says, the worst of its kind. And the government didn't do best practice policy in oil cleanup. The first thing was supposed to happen was they were supposed to take that project of cleaning it up to make sure it's clean up to the satisfaction of them and the Bahamian people. And the expert also said that it'll take decades to clean up. Nobody knows what the long-lasting effects will be. Understand this, Michelle. There should have been an arbitrary board set up for the citizens in Grand Bahama, for the residents in Grand Bahama, to be able to put in claims to this company for damages. Any loss that you had during this oil spill or due to this oil spill, you could have put in a claim. That's how you should have done. Now, I want you to understand that the statute of limitation for us putting a class action lawsuit against this company, it is not gone. We still have that opportunity in government or without going into Parliament. We already started the process. Then we're going to show the government that the Bahamian people deserve to get paid for this. You know, and the Bahamas and the Port Authority, rather, is not even concerned about the Bahamian people. They're charging you for water coming out of your tap. And the water's not, you can't even brush your teeth with the water. It's damaging all of your appliances. So we have a multitude of issues here in Grand Bahama. And I mean, me getting to Parliament is only the start.
I want to read a comment from a couple of our Facebook viewers. Carolyn says, "We must stand together. Stop trying to discredit nation builders. They are fighting for us all to have a future." Dale says, Mr. C. Allen Johnson is 100% correct in his facts regarding Grand Bahama and Port Authority laws and their effects on the island and the Bahamas as a whole. The gentleman caller, Mr. Johnson from Long Island, is also 100% correct in that the failures of Grand Bahama and the Bahamas are due to the fact that Bahamians, which include all government administrations from 1967 to today, have not demanded that what is legally correct be enforced for the average Bahamian, the law and their effect.
Michelle, let me just go to the oil. Do you know? I was trying to look. Maybe I should share my screen. No, that's the wrong screen. But I'm showing to you, right? Let me. The oil company in sense up there have not fixed their tanks. Just let me see. My camera doesn't do the thing here, but essentially the oil companies have not repaired the oil tanks up there that's damaged. Is exactly how it was damaged from years ago. I just took my drone up there and took some shots up there, and so nothing has changed. But I don't understand this. Do you know Michael Pintard mentioned in the House of Assembly that we have these $5 billion of that is generated? $5 billion of carbon credits used to be generated, or still is generated, a fraction of it diminished in East Grand Bahama alone. So not only have they done damage to $1 billion worth of freshwater table, the area up there is considered the longest underwater caves in the world. The National Geographic has declared East Grand Bahama as a historical site for world history to know the origins of the world. The crystal caves up there, for which they also said has no value. They couldn't determine the value because the figures don't exist for them to determine the value. The fishing banks is up there, and not in the billions of dollars. The red mangroves and the regular mangroves is up there. The coppice is up there. All have just been damaged, as well as the carbon sink of $5 billion a year. We have yet to get $1 for the damages inflicted in East Grand Bahama that will probably last a generation. And so when you begin to look at the industrial sector for Freeport, and the same thing has happened. You could have a company that comes in that makes this dangerous carcinogens, that brings in the poison, and there's no export record of the refuse of the byproducts that has been created has ever left the Bahamas. In fact, we modified the plastics law. Remember the plastic bags, the plastic ban? The #1 producer of styrofoam, I think, in the world is right here in Freeport. They import tons of carcinogenics. And the byproduct, no one can account for it because it's never been exported out of the Bahamas, because no country would accept it. So where is it happening? It's been pumped into the ground. The same thing for the other companies, the other industrial companies that produce chemicals here for years. We have a cement factory that is considered a world, it's a definition of site that can be cleaned, that has asbestos and everything, that is in the open air, that cause cancer, that's existing. And guess who bought that? The same company that's exporting the aragonite is the company that owns the site in plain sight of the poison. In fact, they use piece of the land to take the ship park to take it out. And this is a site, they call it a Superfund site. If it's in the United States, it should have been a Superfund site where they would have assigned billions of dollars to clean this up. They have a spot there where they park their boat to take the aragonite out of the country. It's sitting there in plain sight. When you buy a company, which is the areas they bought was part of the cement factory, you buy the liabilities. But we're not doing anything about it. It just sits there exposed. And so Grand Bahama is a conversation to be had. And we have to have it now for the mere fact that I explained to you, no place, in spite of its environmental things that can be addressed, is better prepared for the economic recovery of the Bahamas. We talk about the world has went digital. The Bahamas is the most digitally prepared country in the world. Freeport, if treated as a country, would be the second most prepared country in the world. So I'm simply saying is that technology exists and our awareness exists to address the defects of what is happening. In fact, Michelle, the hotel, and I would challenge the Minister of Finance, the Junior Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Grand Bahama, and the Competent Authority, and the Prime Minister, all of those wrapped up in two people, the Honorable Crazy Smith and the Most Honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis, to come and engage me and my team as part of a conversation, so we could tell them how we could maintain and keep the hotel instead of giving it away for what we have paid for it and probably billions of dollars in tax concession. There's a new economic model in the world today that we can collect $250 million right now for that hotel. We can, as a people in a sovereign trust, we can keep it and generate $250 million to repair it without any money except for maybe, let's say, $500,000 more from government. We don't need to sell that hotel. We need to incorporate it as part of the new economic model for hospitality in the Bahamas. But what's happening is that these guys is looking at 5-year plans. This is why they're trying to fleece us about a hotel going to be opening on the 25th with 60 employees. Imagine you can open up a hotel. So that has 900 rooms. 900 rooms can bring 60 employees to open back up where they have not done anything concerning the mold, the mildew, the furniture, nothing. It is all a staging to bring back, so they can simply say they're doing something to be reelected. And this is the problem: is we have to stop allowing them to lie to us, to lead us astray, to bamboozle us. We have to confront them and put aside the political tribalism and realize that a rising water brings all boat. They're not just lying to the PLPs because the FNM wants to deny it. They're lying to all of us.
Everybody. We got to take a break, Salen. We got to take a break. So let's take this break, and then because we missed our 12 o'clock break because our first break was late. So let's take this break. And then when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation about Grand Bahama, the Grand Deception. What happened? And how can we get Grand Bahama back to its glory days? That's the topic on today's GPS. Stay with us. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Ocean blue is the best in seafood, hey. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. We got fish, conch, lobster, shrimp. Ocean blue garden, ocean blue friendly and clean. Best service you ever seen. Ocean blue is the best in seafood, yeah. Fresh out the water and affordable too, yeah. Ocean blue seafood, we are here for you. Ocean blue seafood, no one else will do. Ocean Blue Seafood, located on Burnett Road. Contact us at 393-2160.
Looking for an extraordinary junior high school with caring, qualified staff and affordable tuition? Then come visit us at Elite School of Excellence, an affiliate of First Step Academy. ABECA-focused and Ministry of Education approved, we foster discipline, integrity, and wisdom while molding our students for success. Call us at 341-8846 or stop by First Step Academy Schools on Fire Trail and Soldy Roads for more information. Escape from the city life to Bacon Air Beach Resort in Piratesville, Mayaguana. Relax in one of 16 air-conditioned rooms just steps away from the ocean. Enjoy scrumptious dishes in our waterfront dining room. Sip on a tropical cocktail, or if you must, stay connected with wireless internet. Nestled on one of the most beautiful beaches in the Bahamas, Bacon Air Beach Resort offers a unique vacation experience. For reservations, call 339-3726 or 463-0182.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm. My guests today are C. Alan Johnson and KCX. We're talking about Grand Bahama today, the Grand Deception from Visions of Grandeur 2, the depths of despair. What has gone wrong in Grand Bahama? I want to read a couple of the comments from our Facebook audience. Let's see. Ellie Cooper says, this is an absolute tragedy. It seems as if we continue to be abused and you can't get a legitimate answer from anyone. Patricia says, gosh, we the people need to stop the rape of our country. Let's see. We have a couple more comments. This one is from Alana. She says, Grand Bahama will never come back in our lifetime. That's done with the drug trade. Port never helped or held up FBO. They only helped themselves and raped Freeport with a few developments to hide behind. And Delphine says, let's see if I can get this comment here. They have sold out the Grand Bahamian for years. The Bahamian people mean nothing to our government. All we are is a puppet to foolishly vote them back in the House. Please, people, open your eyes to the truth. It is time to stop punishing ourselves by letting the same two parties in. They do not work for us. They are all working for the rich oligarchs. Wake up, Bahamas, before it is too late. Okay, so KCX has moved on to another site. While he's getting in position, I'll go ahead and read one more comment. This one is from, oh, no, I just read that one. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, so KCX has made his way, or is making his way, I should say, to the site of the oil spill. The same oil spill that they said is already cleaned up. So I don't expect that KCX is going to find any oil anywhere in that vicinity because according to the reports that
he is in that oil spill, not that, he's in East Grand Bahama. He's taking you to another one here in Freeport locally.
Oh, I thought he was heading to, okay. All right. So where is he taking us from what you can see?
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get my bearing on that because it'll take him 30 minutes to go up there where the oil spill is.
KCX, where are you? Can you hear me? Okay, I think he's still
taking you to farmer camp to show you where they are dumping the carcinogens into the water table. Now okay. Listen to me. This facility that they dump this poison into, it goes 600 feet into the ground. And there have been so many people that worked at this company that have died from the water. I can send you a list of the men, that the families you can talk to, that they now have litigations against this company. So we're almost there, walking in my forte right now.
But as he walks, just let me answer Michelle. Alana. Alana said the Grand Bahama, and then I say to you, the Grand Bahama, within 3 to 5 years, can become the metropolis of the Bahamas if we do what is necessary and we do what is right. And I'm simply inviting a real conversation on what Grand Bahama is and what Grand Bahama can be. And so essentially it just requires, but the demand has to come from the people. KCX and I have been demanding this for decades. The problem now is the people have not done. When they walk in the room, everybody says, oh boy, here comes trouble. But they've never once seen where I've asked a question or brought evidence where those sitting in the front have been able to refute it. But yet they will take a political position. Well, when the PLP is in, he's a troublemaker. When the FNM is in, the fanatical supporter says, I'm the troublemaker trying to embarrass their party. While they, families and friends and everybody else is being poisoned and killed. The beauty is our message have not changed in 15 years of the internet as we know it in the Bahamas. And information is there. But instead of questioning, he said, you know what? Why don't you just shut him down? Prove that he's wrong so he don't show up here again. It doesn't happen. They wear their red shirt, and who's sitting up front? They will boo me and say, you're causing trouble. But the same people, when the PLP comes in, those same people who booed me under the FNM will be in the back of the room clapping, saying, get him, get him, get him.
Meanwhile, their loved ones are suffering and dying while they play in politics.
Here's the tank, Michelle. Here's the tank we're looking at right here. The tall one with the yellow ladder on it. That's the tank right there. that goes 600 feet into the ground. Now, would I be broadcasting something like this if it wasn't true?
Well, let me just give you the record. Allegedly, we can't because
okay, Michelle, let's use allegedly. But yes, very easy to do. Call the Minister of Transport and ask him to present you the records of where the carcinogens they imported in and the byproduct. Ask for the bill of lading of where it left the country, and if it hasn't left the country, where it's stored. The facility for over 15, 20 years of carcinogens that has been produced would take up acres of tanks. That little tank can't hold even a 6-month supply of the poisons that's been produced compared to what was imported. It's very simple.
So where's it going?
The poisons that was produced, where was it exported to? It has to be somewhere on this island because it never left.
My God. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Casey, what you saying?
Yeah, the bottom line is this, Michelle. We've never had true representation in Grand Bahama. The issues that you hear Ciala and I bring up every day, and we've been doing it for decades now, and you've never heard them advocated for in the House of Assembly. We need to put ourselves in position to go and make sure that we can make legislative changes in the House of Assembly. We need to be able to govern this country properly. A matter of fact, watch this. You know, they say that we now paying VAT in Grand Bahama. They're saying that you bring in a vehicle or you bring in supplies and you pay duty on it if you have to sell it, right? That's erroneous also. Because how was it from 1955 to 1969 you didn't pay duty for those who had were licensed under the Port Authority or the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement? How is it now that we have to pay duty? Imagine this then. To prove to you that I'm right with this, if you had to pay duty on something that came in, was brought into this country bonded, ask yourself this question. In 2054, when the agreement comes to an end, so that means that you got to pay duty on everything? No, you don't have to. So these are some of the things that we are having issues with the messaging. And we need people who understand exactly what's happening in Grand Bahama and how to fix it. And one of the things that we need to do, first of all, is abrogate this Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, which has failed Grand Bahama. It has failed us terribly, terribly.
Michelle, let me just say what Casey just said to you about the bonded issue. The Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, there's no such thing as a bonded vehicle or bonded anything. The Hawkesbury Creek Agreement says duty-free, free of duty. This misnomer called bonded is totally unconvincing to the intent of the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement. The word duty-free means that I pay no duty on it and it's not conditional. And so we don't know where this whole conditional revenue generating aspect, limiting the development of Grand Bahama came from, where they simply say, we're going to suspend the bond, we're going to suspend the duty, and you pay a bond in case you violate the suspension of the duty, which we're under the law. In fact, Mr. Gregory Morse challenged this before he was in the House of Assembly when he was, I think, Chamber President, or shortly after, to simply say, where in the Hawkesbury, forget what you say about a bonded agreement. Show the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement where it says bonded in it. It says duty-free. It says that you could build your house duty-free. In fact, if you come to Grand Bahama and start a business or work for a company that falls under the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, you can build your house duty-free and VAT-free. That reduces even the cost. We just talked about developing Grand Bahama. If you follow the agreement in Freeport, you could build duty-free and VAT-free totally. Forget what the government is saying now in this whole mix-up.
If you know that, and KCX knows that, and other people know that, I am sure that the powers that be know it as well. So why is it being allowed to happen? Why? What is going on here?
Power over people. Because, again, fixing the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement, first of all, the Hawkesbury Agreement is not an agreement. It's an actual law. It's law, the Deepwater Harbor Act. So this law calls for certain things. It literally calls for the emancipation and movement to self-governance for people and Parliament, the New Providence, the oligarchs. Remember now, developing Grand Bahama. This is why they're trying to grab the ports. You know, we did a story on the ports because they don't control the ports in Grand Bahama. So what happens is they have everybody in this crabs in this bucket in Nassau where they control the economy. Developing Grand Bahama economy knocks down where they control the food, the stores, the land, and everything in New Providence. Remember now, take a satellite of New Providence, you'll see all of the people in New Providence live probably on 25% of the land. That's why you can see them so congested. They control an artificial environment where they get to inflate by keeping land scarce. They get to inflate the price. This is about what the land registry is about. If you have a land registry and government take back control of the land, whether it's a sovereign fund or something else, the land value in the Bahamas will most likely plummet. Not when I say plummet, I mean becomes affordable. And so essentially what you have is a orchestrated poverty on the Bahamian people, where people are actually beginning to fight to support their prisoners, as opposed to having something like a sovereign wealth fund. You hear the Prime Minister has 1 million, 2 million acres of land, and he says, I'm going to arrange for 50 people to get some land, and the rest of you, if you're lucky, could join the line, and if you're lucky, I'll tap you on your shoulder, and it might be you. Imagine a multi-million-dollar acreage underground land, and he's saying, and he's saying giving you an acre now. He's giving you a plot, probably an eighth of an acre or a sixth of an acre. So he's putting 6 of you on an acre, while in his pocket, he has multi-millions of acres, because it's about control. And so because wealth and empowered people will demand more. And so they have to keep this artificial poverty. Let's use the economy in the Bahamas. In the Bahamas, I just told you Grand Bahama produced more GDP than the whole Bahamas. But in the Bahamas, less than 2,000 people takes $9 billion out of the economy, and the rest of 400,000 of us have to share the other 4 billion as salaries. So why is it that this wealth in the Bahamas is not common wealth? It's because we can't have an honest conversation about the economy. That's where they hide the statistics. They hide national insurance statistics that they can make public. They hide the employment statistics, and we can't get the budget in real time. We starve the Auditor General to make sure he can't check. And we pretend that the PAC don't have any power. And so what we have is a group of people who become that which they despise once they reach there, because their ambition has always been greater than their ability. They don't exist in the new environment that I've been demanding for at least a decade, because this new digital environment would make at least 10,000 families millionaires in the next 10 years.
Yeah, they
don't want 10,000 of you equal to them, because you'll outnumber them. And so what they do, they create an artificial poverty state, because $3 trillion, according to the WTO, in the Bahamas, the trade happens in the Bahamas. Let's repeat what the former junior minister of finance said. He said, when questioned, I asked, can we do what WTO requires without joining WTO? He says, we could do it tomorrow. But we'll most likely do it if the foreigners force us to do it. Force you to do what's right for Bahamians? This is the lie.
That sounds about right, Cialan. That sounds about right. I want to read a couple of comments, and then we have to take our final break of the show. Boy, Alana says, wow, this is real Bahamas. Sure enough, girls, sure enough. And she goes on to say, yes, Casey X and Cialan continue to speak truth and expose the foolishness. Alana says again, Casey is right. For years now, it has been that way. And finally, Melvern says, OMG, wow. Yeah, this is some mind-blowing information that we're hearing today. And the question is, why are we not hearing more of this kind of conversation, especially from these people who come knocking on your door now, talking about vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. Grand Bahama, if y'all get swing again, that on y'all. We have to take a quick break. Final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to bring this whole thing home. We're talking Grand Bahama today, the grand deception, from visions of grandeur to depths of despair. What in the world has happened to Grand Bahama? Stay with us. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
When elegance and taste make a connection, every single dish is a taste of heaven. For your banquet or your wedding, who you getting? HD Catering. HD Catering.
Book Heaven's Delicacy Catering today with Chef Lachey Jones and experience a taste of heaven on earth. Call 533-9621.
HD Catering.
Want to look your best and feel even better? Visit J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa for the ultimate beauty, body, and anti-aging treatments, offering custom colors, haircuts, vegan anti-freeze treatments, silk blowouts, natural and acrylic nails, unisex pedicures, facials, and massages, all waxing services, and microcurrent therapies for anti-aging and body sculpting. J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madeira Street, telephone 326-7863.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Glory 93.9 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and my guests today are C. Alan Johnson and KCX, and we're talking Grand Bahama today, the grand deception from visions of grandeur to depths of despair. What has gone wrong in Grand Bahama? I want to read a comment or two. Quentin says, successive governments have failed the Bahamian people. We need to wake up and keep them out. FNM and PLP. Interesting there. Okay. And Alex says, thank you, Mr. Kendle Colebrooke and C. Alan Johnson, for the information that you both shared with us today. All right, gentlemen. Election could either be right around the corner or about a year away. And this is the time when people start knocking on people's door and handing out the flyers and talking about, what the other people are into and what we can do and, why you should support us or why you should vote us back in or why you should kick them other people out. But for Grand Bahama, I would think that the persons on that island would really, really consider what is being presented to them, because Grand Bahama has been, the whole of the Bahamas is, going through a hard time. But man, in Grand Bahama, it is especially bad. So what message would you give, or what should the people of Grand Bahama be looking for when people come knocking on their door, talking about vote for me? What should they be saying to them in light of what your current reality is on that island? KCX, you're muted. You have to unmute your mic.
Yeah, before I go any further, let me make a correction. It's not the company what I showed you just now. It's PharmaCam International. So I just want to make that correction. The first thing anyone,
we're losing you.
Wasn't that Polymus?
No,
that wasn't Polymus.
No, that was Polymus International.
Okay. All right. So correction has been made. Okay, great. Now, what do Grand Bahamians need to be looking for in the next candidates who come asking for their support? What will make you guys satisfied as Grand Bahamians that what can they possibly say to you that will make you believe that they have your best intentions at heart? Anybody?
Well, I think when someone comes to knock on your door, they're saying that I want to represent you. I want to show you that I can go in the House of Assembly and speak on your behalf. So I think the first question should be to the voter is, where have you been all this time? While the Bahamas was sliding, especially Grand Bahama was sliding to the bottom. Where were you? How come you didn't stand with C. Allen and Casey when they were advocating for our needs here in Grand Bahama? We need people that has a track record of standing up for others. You can't tell me you just now are concerned because it's an election season. We, C. Allen and myself, we stood when it wasn't popular. As a matter of fact, can you imagine if we didn't stand up against the WTO under both administrations? We'd have been destroyed by now. This country would have been finished. And where are these voices and where are these people who say they care so much? Where are they coming from now? So I think what anyone that knocks on the door is not really important. Is what are you going to ask them when they knock on your door? You should ask them, show me your track record of standing up for others other than yourself. That's the most important thing.
And secondly, they have to ask them, what is your competence? Explain to me that you understand what is wrong with Grand Bahama, because it says that you cannot manage what you cannot measure, and you cannot measure what you're incapable of or refuse to acknowledge. And so these individuals have lived in these communities, and more so for those that belong to the political party. We already know the political party position. They're not going to come in to contest. And the minute you fall in line, because remember, they want candidates that fall in line with the political parties. So when they've come in, they're already taking the party position to continue to run, duck, and hide from the issues that's facing us. Because they could have corrected this over the last 25 years. So for those independents and other individuals, just make sure that they understand the problem. You can't fix what you don't understand. Do you understand Grand Bahama? Do you understand the Hawkesbury Creek Agreement? Do you understand the lies? Do you understand the players? Do you understand the industries that's here? Do you understand the potential of what Grand Bahama possess? Because you simply can't say, I want to do better. I want to do something. What is that something? That's like going to a house fire with no fire and says, I think I should do something. What you want to do? Blow, huff, and puff? We don't need talkers. We need individuals who is going to bring policies and legislation to the House of Assembly to bring about changes, and who has the competence, once authenticated, to stand in the public domain and not be challenged with their information. Well, I think, well, I was told, well, I'm hoping for, well, I'm praying for, well, I'm wishing. No, we need to know what you know, so you could begin to correct the defects that exist within it. We need, I would tell you, it would be wonderful if we can send 5 individuals, independents from Grand Bahama. At minimum, we need 2. I would love to see 3. Because what happens then is one brings the legislation, the other seconds it, and then we can begin to ask for division in the House of Assembly. We could also ask that the reading of, you know how they read in the House of Assembly that violates the House rules, where you read a script that's prepared for you by the party or by the PS or somebody in your office. If you don't know what you're speaking about, sit down and shut up. On your feet to show the competence of the subject that you're on.
Then the debates would be very, very short, Alan. The debates would be very short if that would have happened.
But now, those of us, we can remove the limit that they say, well, you can only talk for an hour because we got 29 other people who want to say nothing. We can say, you all got nothing to say. Let those of us that know what is happening, let's have a conversation with the Bahamian people. And so what happens then is that you have these independents that drives the agenda for change that is needed, knowing that it benefits all Bahamians, because the taxation and the robbery of the most, you know, imagine that this is a harbor, a port. Grand Bahama and Abaco sits on the border, on the transition of the point for all that $3 billion worth of economy talk about that happens in the Bahamas, all happens offshore Grand Bahama. And so if we begin to benefit from those things, Grand Bahama becomes the linchpin. So in fact, if you see some competent independents that offer themselves and you on New Providence, I would recommend that you call your friends, your family, whether even if they're just your Facebook friends, and said, please make sure that person gets into the House of Assembly. If it requires some resources, send your $5, your $10 or whatever to those individuals. And let those individuals bring about the change, because what they bring, see, like an individual like myself in the House of Assembly, I don't need that minister's salary, because what I will generate by creating an environment, a digital environment, and an environment far exceed the $28,000 I'll get in from the House of Assembly. But you have individuals who will take a position on a government post because $100,000 is a fantasy that they've never achieved. And so what we simply saying is, let's fix it so we all can make $100,000, so that we all can own bed and breakfast and be worth $1 million within 5 to 7 years. Because if we need 20,000 bed and breakfasts, if everybody gets 3 bed and breakfasts, good. That's 7,000 families that just becomes millionaire from the bed and breakfast. That don't count the stores, the tours, the car rentals, the clothes, and everything else. If you we fix our immigration system for Grand Bahama that protects our citizenship and open up the country, let them come, let them spend their money. But we own the stores, we own the construction companies, we own those things. And when we need expertise, like if I just chip my teeth tonight, I don't go become a dentist, I go buy the expertise we need. We can buy the expertise we need. We don't need to give them the country so we can get a job from it. So we need competent individuals that understand the issues, that understands the future, so we can help build the Bahamas. It doesn't require nothing but legislation and legislation to give us access to the capital we need. And so don't let them tell you, you don't have the money, you don't have whatever, you don't need money. The money doesn't create wealth. Ideas do.
C. Allen. Okay. I have a comment from Melvern that says, very educational show. We needed more shows like this. Thanks very much, Michelle, for the true facts. Sonia says, ain't it the truth? They always say nothing. I guess she's talking about the politicians. Bertha says, great show again, Michelle. Okay, C. Allen, not C. Allen. KCX, you were holding something up. What is that you holding up?
On Saturday, this is a card. This was out from 2013. It's a network card that we started. And I want to implement this in the East Grand Bahama constituencies. And on all of the polling divisions, we want to set up something called a network system. So I launch on Saturday, and it's at the Q Lounge. Saturday at the Q Lounge at 6 o'clock. I launch my candidacy. And I'm inviting everyone from the East End community to come on out and hear what we have planned for East Grand Bahama. And I'm just excited about the opportunity to be able to serve. That's something I've been doing for all of my adult life. You know,
so you sending the check in the mail for that free plug, what you get just now?
Well, you know that. You know, I got you. And I want to take the time out to tell you, Michelle, what you have to offer, Michelle, I think the Bahamas is too small for you publicly. You need to be on the world stage. You are class, elegance, and you are a professional. I mean, from head to toe. You know, I love Michelle. You are my favorite.
Thank you so much.
Truth has a new home.
The truth has a new home. And I don't want you to sleep, you know, KCX. The Lord has already opened doors, man. When I make this.
And don't forget us when you get in your kingdom.
I don't forget you, man. But no, God, no, seriously, God has already opened some amazing doors. We're going to be hearing very, very soon about
KCX studio will be on Grand Bahama.
Say what?
Our mega studio will be on Grand Bahama in the pristine, restored East Grand Bahama. But Michelle, Malcolm, remember now, let's go back to the FNM 2017 campaign. Hold
on. No, we only got 5 minutes left in the show, C. Allen, so I can treat this as your final thoughts. So you got
okay, yes, I'm telling you. The FNM made at least 20 promises in the campaign alone. I'm saying to you, they've added multiples to that. They have yet to fulfill any of those 20 promises. The FNM promised us in East Grand Bahama a multi-billion-dollar revitalization called ecotourism. They said in Central Grand Bahama, not the constituency, we will have technology which should have taken 4 months. They've been trying for 4 years. and they've spent millions of dollars doing, and they paid foreigners millions of dollars, and people like me and others who've been in technology for 42 years was never called, not once. Was supposed to be industry and technology and cultural and heritage tourism in East and West Grand Bahama, which would have begin the revitalization of Grand Bahama. They have yet to begin on that agenda. And they are asking us to actually come forward with some ideas. I'll give credit where credit is due. Pintard has brought this fishery bill, which is technically, if you look at the purest sense, it's a green and blue economy bill. We need to maximize the use of it. And this is why you see the oligarchs fighting against it. I'm saying to you, we have a tremendous opportunity beginning today, to take back ownership, not of just Grand Bahama, but of the entire Bahamas.
And we better do it quickly, boy. Because if we don't, if you all sleep, if you all slunk, when you wake up, it's gone. KCX, your final thoughts. You got to unmute your mic. Unmute your microphone, KCX.
Here we go.
There you go. All right.
Listen, I want to thank you so much for having us on your show, because there's very little ever said on mainstream media about Grand Bahama, and there are issues. To the Grand Bahama community, they're getting ready to release their manifestos. We don't need to read another manifesto. All it is things that they know we want to hear. There's no need to look at another manifesto. So trust the ones that have been here working for you. Trust the ones that you know. We don't just visit Grand Bahama. We live here. We've suffered with you. And KCX, I have been battle ready for years now. I've been tested and proven. And I'm looking for your support. So I'll see you guys on Saturday at 6 o'clock at the Q Lounge. Thank you so much, Michelle.
KCX ain't got no shame, you know. I done throw shade at him for the first free plug, and then he come with the second one. This dude ain't got no shame. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
We'll give it a low budget.
Well, clearly.
So you have to plug where we get free.
But GTS got bills to pay. I can't be having him do no free plug on this show. Not a day like it. No. Listen, guys. Thank you so much.
I'll know better next time.
Thanks so much for being a part of the show today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, the knowledge you guys shared, will fall on some ears that have the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to be diplomatic. We just need people who are going to do what they know is right to do. Because it ain't like they don't know, They know. But we need some people with some spines, some backbone, who aren't afraid to do what is right for the people. And when I say the people, I ain't talking about the oligarchs, because I know, people say they said what's the people time, and I always tell y'all they didn't say which people. Y'all hear the Prime Minister say the next time for y'all, this time ain't for y'all. Give us another chance, and then I go check for the poor. So clearly, when he said it was the people time, he wasn't talking about the poor. That's your time next time. But in all seriousness, though, we need to identify some people. I don't care if it's PLP, F&M, DNA, independent, I don't care where they come from. In this next election, people find people to vote for who have a heart for the people of this nation, who will do right by the people of this nation, who will have backbone and stand up to the special interests and say enough is enough. If the person who comes in front of you with all them placard and thing and all them ain't got that, run them. Tell them, no, not today. Enough is enough. Time for us to do better as a country. That's my time, y'all. It's 1 o'clock. Thanks so much to my guests for being here today. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. And thanks to my sponsors for making today's show possible. I'm Michelle Malcolm. Don't miss tomorrow, Wellness Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the triangle of disease. It's going to be mind-blowing. Have a good one, everybody.